Hi, my name is Dana Fox, and today I wanted to discuss with you some of my thoughts on the environment, specifically the government's involvement with our environmental needs. I worked with the Tennessee Division of Forestry for the last 8 years in a government position, and before that I spent 25 years working with a manufacturing company. So I have a little bit of experience with both enforcing some of these regulations and following them. And government controls over the environment is a subject that I feel very strongly about. I know over the last couple hundred years of our being a country, we've had a very difficult time of balancing out our country's desire to be a world-leading power and our country's need to conserve our natural resources and the necessity to control the pollution that occurs from manufacturing and excess. We have done a lot of things as a country to help protect our air, our water, and our land. Some of the regulations have been very beneficial, and some of them have been controversial. Whether or not they will be effective in the long run remains to be seen. Back in 1970, the Clean Air Act was passed to help protect our air from factory pollutants and emissions into the air, and also automobile travel and the carbon dioxides that are emitted from vehicles. Along those lines, in 1972, the catalytic converter was introduced and began to be required in automobiles, which reduced the carbon dioxide emission from a vehicle, but it introduced nitrous oxide, which is way worse than carbon dioxide, and it also reduced the fuel efficiency of a vehicle, sometimes by up to 10 to 20%. So a lot of the regulations that were put in place to protect our air quality were very difficult for businesses to absorb, and there were very expensive fines and fees, taxes, and processes to clean the air from factories. So in 1993, when the North American Free Trade Agreement was passed, many of our manufacturing plants went to third world countries to produce their product. So we lost a lot of our manufacturing industry in America, but it was a lot less expensive to manufacture in a third world country where the regulations are a lot more lax. Of course, they will suffer the consequences of that in the future when their water and their air needs to be protected. The Clean Water Act of 1972 was aimed at protecting all of the water in America, starting from the headwaters all the way down to the oceans. Watershed associations were created to focus attention on the very origins of our water, the mountaintop streams that lead into creeks that lead into rivers that flow to the ocean, and paying attention to all of the waterways from their very origins all the way to the ocean has helped the water that reaches the ocean be a lot cleaner. Tighter, more restrictive controls on water have made gray water a thing of the past. Tighter plumbing codes and regulations have made using gray water for irrigation in gardens and landscaping obsolete. It used to be just a thing that you did. Black water has sewage in it, and gray water is just from your sink, your tub, stuff like that. Now there are so many chemicals in the products that we use, hair care products and soap and cleaning products, that gray water is not considered safe anymore, and it's outlawed to use it in many states, although the rules vary from state to state to state. I think out west, where they're a lot drier, gray water is encouraged. One more controversial rule was the addition of fluoride into tap water in the 40s. That was not really to keep the environment clean, but it was an environmental issue in that it goes to health. A lot of people questioned the addition of fluoride, which is a byproduct of the aluminum industry, and the aluminum industry was involved in having this enacted because it helped them get rid of one of their byproducts that they were having to pay to get rid of. Land protection dates back much further than the 70s with the development of the national park system. Early on in the mid-1800s, when the government saw that our forests were being deforested so quickly, they started to preserve the land by buying it up in parcels and making state and national park systems out of them. I think Yellowstone National Park was the very first national park in 1872. And that was a great way to protect large areas of land. Some of the regulations that were to protect just our general soil and vegetation came into effect a lot later, and a lot of them in the 70s, like the banning of DDT as an herbicide, which of course was replaced with less toxic herbicides, but in the last 20 years or so, these less toxic herbicides have been used in greater volumes, and I don't know if they're not equally harmful in the environment because they're not as toxic, but they're being used way more, and the runoff into our water system and the effects on the smaller animals. So those are some of the things that America has done to help protect the land, the air, and the water. There's a lot more that we can do, and I hope that there's a lot more that we will do. Of course, on a very small scale, these things can begin with the individual, like turning off the water while you're brushing your teeth and not dumping used oil in the backyard, and just each person living sustainably and trying to preserve our natural resources. There's a lot more that the government can do too with taxes and regulations. America is still number 2 in the top 10 list of heavily polluted countries, which is not great. We're second to China. We're not even in the top 10 list for green countries, which as a world leading power, I feel like we should be. The top 5 of the top 10 greenest countries, I don't even recognize that have ever been involved in a war. So it may be that they've just set their priorities different than we have. They're not mass manufacturing countries, and they're not world powers. But they do have clean drinking water. Can power and sustainable living go hand in hand? I guess that's my question for you. It's what I would like to see, and it's what I hope that we can accomplish. So, I hope you'll think about that. Thank you.